Sharie Minions. I've been in Port Alberni for a long time. I love Port Alberni. I hate public speaking, so you guys are lucky to have me here. Cheryl and I have been talking about starting to go to, Cheryl's my neighbor as well, so she'll randomly stop by my house, so we do see each other a lot. We've been talking about going to Toastmasters for quite a while actually, because we both don't feel comfortable public speaking, and I went once, so I think I should be good now for a while. So I put together a quick PowerPoint because I thought it would give me something to look at, which makes public speaking easier. So just to kind of generally what I'm going to talk about, I'm going to just talk about myself for a couple of minutes. Talk about the last 2 years we've been on council, sort of what we've done, what we're working towards, and then talk a little bit about the future of Port Alberni and where we're sort of at now with decision making. So about myself. I grew up in Port Alberni. I was born and raised here. I moved to Victoria after I graduated. I went to university there, met my husband there. We moved back to Port Alberni after I started my mortgage broker business. I have 4 lovely children, and I always write that, and my husband always criticizes that I don't write that I have a husband as well, but I do have a husband. Cheryl will note that I mentioned him here today. And I'm obsessed with city council. So it's funny, since I've been on council, the question people are constantly asking me, every time I bump into someone, they always say the exact same thing. How do you like city council? Maybe worded differently, but I've probably been asked that 1,000 times since I started on council. And I always kind of start my answer with, well, and my husband called me on it once. He said, why do you say that? You say it like it's negative, like you don't like it, but it's all you ever talk about. And so I started kind of thinking, like, why do I say that? Because I definitely do tend to say, well, I like it, but, and so I sat down and thought about why I say that lately. And I decided that being on council is hard. Not for any specific reason at all. It's a lot of fun. It's something I'm definitely interested in. But at the end of the day, it's a lot of meetings. It's a lot of negativity because people really tend to focus on the negative, and at least 3/4 of the town is always mad at us, no matter what we do. But that said, I really do like it. Even though I always have to remind myself that I have a job as well. I'm a mortgage broker. I have to focus on that. But there's nothing I'd really rather do than be on council at this time. I'm happy I'm there. I'm happy I was elected. And although I don't always feel like I'm making change, I think eventually I will. So I stole this picture from Chris Alamani's Facebook today, because today is actually 2 years since we were sworn in as city council. There's Chris being sworn in, and I'm in the background. It's been 2 years, and it went by so fast. And just sort of thinking back about what we have done, kind of why we ran in the first place, and where we're at now, and is this where we sort of thought that we would be in 2 years? And it's interesting to sort of look at that and start really thinking about that question. I started writing down a few things that we had done. Because I think that as just a community member when I was running for council, I sort of thought that there would be a lot more that we had done by this point. I think when you get into this kind of position, you start to realize that things move slowly and for a reason. They move slowly because when you're dealing with this kind of organization, you have to make sure things are done properly and well thought out and well planned, and that you've got everything covered before you sort of jump into things, which is sort of the opposite of what you think will happen when you run for council. So I thought I'd just take a few minutes to talk about some of the things that we have done that I'm really proud of. This is just, I took this off my City Council Facebook page, but it's about our live streaming. So getting council meetings online, live streamed, so people can watch them if they don't have Shaw, was a bigger process than we thought it would be. And it might seem like a small deal when you first start thinking about it, but those meetings are then stored on our city's website, and anyone can watch them anytime in the future. And I think that's really important for our accountability. What we say is there forever, whether we want it to be or not. How we interact with each other is there for anyone to see anytime they want. How we interact with our guests, the kinds of questions we asked, how we vote. I think it's really important at this level, with any government, it's really important to have that kind of transparency. We're working on getting more people to watch our meetings, but whoever wants to can, and they're there, and I know I, for one, really think about that when I'm speaking at council, because I don't want people, and speaking now, video, but you know, it gives you a higher level of, well, there's more transparency there. On the topic of trying to get more people to watch our meetings, one thing that Chris and I have been talking a lot about is sort of a shift in ways of thinking. I think the days where people will come to our city council meetings and give us their opinions there or tell us about their problems there are going to be long gone pretty soon. We can't expect people to come to our meetings if they have a problem. We have to start going to the people more, and I think that's a mentality shift that as we start to get more people running for government in my demographic, we're going to start to see that more. My next slide's about social media. I have a story from social media this morning. So another thing that the city's done over the last 2 years is hugely increase their presence on social media, and that's, you know, partly due to councillors being on social media. Myself and Chris are really active on social media, and a few others as well. This is just one example of the Victoria Quay Bridge project, and they really talked about that a lot on our city Facebook page, and I think that was really positive because a lot more people knew it was out there, knew what was going on, you know, knew what the budget was, and knew when it was completed. And I think the more information we put out there to the people, it gives less opportunity for stories to be spun negatively. I think if you're on Facebook, you'll probably be aware that if we don't put the information out first, people will take the information and do what they want with it, and not necessarily based on fact. So, you know, the more proactive we can be, the better for getting things out there and having accurate information out there. This morning, actually it was yesterday, on AV Chatterbox. How many people are on AV Chatterbox? Oh, not very many in this room. Well,
consciously stay.
That's right. A lot of people are intentionally not on AV Chatterbox. But, you know, AV Chatterbox, as much as it is a very negative site, or can be, there's, I think, 8,000 people on that page. So I know that I have people all the time who don't necessarily interact on social media come to me and say, I saw your post on AV Chatterbox, or I heard this on AV Chatterbox, I saw you respond to this. I think there's a lot more people that we're reaching with that page than we necessarily realize, because it is a lot of the same people commenting, but there's a lot more people out there reading, and I think it's a really a huge tool that we could be doing more with. So yesterday on AV Chatterbox, somebody posted a picture of a city, a crosswalk sign, and the sign was here and his head was here, and he said, he insulted the city, you know, like people tend to on AV Chatterbox, and he said, typical city, you know, can't even install a sign, I'm gonna walk right into the sign. So I saw that and I'm like, well, that doesn't look right. So I took a screenshot of it and sent it to Tim Ply, and I said, is this normal? Like, why is this sign like this? So he sent it to our manager of operations. Manager of operations went and actually measured the sign. This is all about an hour after it was posted, and he emailed me and Tim back and said, that sign is regulation height. You know, it's not wrong. There's nothing wrong with this sign. So, and Chris was involved in that as well. So Chris gets on social media and starts posting, this is right, you know, that's how the sign's supposed to be. And everybody's going crazy because they're like, signs, you should not be able to walk into a sign. But we thought, well, it's been measured. So this morning we get an email, me and Chris, from Tim, actually from Wilf, and it says, that'll come back on eventually. It says, well, funny story. It turns out that the sign guy at the city actually saw that post on social media. He saw it and he went right there and he realized that, you know, something had gone wrong and the sign had moved down about 8 inches, slid down. So he fixed it right away. So that was probably within 15 minutes of the sign being, or of the picture being posted on social media. Less than an hour later, Will Takama goes, measures the sign, says the sign's great. So, you know, then we're posting, well, the sign's perfect. So, and the comment back was, wow, you know, since when is it the new normal that we complain on social media instead of, you know, letting the city know so that they can address it? And I said, well, I think it's actually really positive that, you know, within an hour and a half of this picture being posted, I mean, with 15 minutes later, the sign was fixed. But it's a really powerful tool. It was just interesting that, you know, the sign was actually fixed and then measured, and we got some misinformation along the way. But that's a part of the learning in social media, and, you know, we need to start developing as a city when problems come up on social media, what's the protocol to address them, and because it is a powerful tool, and it's a tool that the community is going to use, whether we expect them to or want them to. It's how we're getting a lot of our information nowadays. I'm going to just try to get us back on.
Squeaky wheels coming from a different direction.
That's right.
Yeah.
There we go. Another thing that we've done in the last 2 years that I'm really proud of is the facade improvement program. And it's interesting, as councillors, I've found that we really don't like to take credit for things. Specific councillors don't like to take credit for specific things, or at least I don't. And I think a part of the reason is when you take credit for something, half the community still is not happy with it. So sometimes it's better to just be neutral. But Pat Deacon constantly talks about this program, and every time he does, he says, and I really want to thank Councillor Minions because I brought it to council and I asked for $10,000 and she stuck her hand up and said you should get 50, and we got 50. So whether I wanted to take credit for it or not, Pat is taking credit for it for me. And it's been controversial in a lot of ways, but I think at the end of the day, it's been a really positive program for the community, so it's one that I am happy to take some of the credit for. For those of you that don't know, the facade improvement program was put into place this year. We did business walks as council last year, and what we found was we went to different businesses in town, quite a few of them. We had a team of about 20 people, the chamber helped. What we found was that a lot of people wanted to do improvements to their businesses, to their storefronts, and we have different programs for people to do improvements, the commercial revitalization tax grant and that kind of thing, but they're largely for a higher level of improvements. I think it's minimum $100,000. Most people that we talked to weren't wanting to do $100,000 improvements to their storefronts. They were wanting to do small projects. They were wanting to paint. They were wanting to, fix siding, that kind of thing. And I think that we were missing out on getting a lot of the storefronts in town to fix up their properties because we weren't giving them the incentive. So they were thinking about doing it, but maybe not jumping to do it, and they maybe weren't taking advantage of our higher end grants. The facade improvement program allowed for some matching funds from the city. So I can't remember how many storefronts took advantage of it. Doesn't say on there, unfortunately. But the city contributed $50,000, and we were really lucky because Community Futures ended up contributing an additional $100,000. So we had $150,000, and that $150,000 leveraged over $650,000 in improvements to storefronts in the community. The storefronts are everywhere in the community, and the work will be done by this spring. So we're going to keep seeing the benefits of it. But I bet if you look around town, if you didn't know this program existed, you've probably seen a few storefronts that have been fixed up and thought it looked great. So I think this is a more proactive program. It was the reason that Pat talks about it a lot, and he said he's had economic development people in other communities say, like, how did you get your council to agree to that program? And the reason that it was a challenging one, I think, for us to get is that the regular commercial tax revitalization programs that we have, they forego taxes. So, they forego new taxes. So it's not like we're taking away from the budget that we already have, whereas this is putting money out instead of just saying, okay, well, we won't collect another $10,000. So it was a little tougher to get, but I think at the end of the day, it's going to be something that's way more visual for the community, and hopefully it'll start to instill a bit more community pride in some of those storefronts that have been not looking great for a while. The next thing that we have been working on, and hopefully it's lot closer, is new governance models for McLean Mill and the museum and heritage services. So one thing that our Judy Rogers report said that we or identified when we did that when we first got on council was that some of the practices that we have are not really in line with what other communities do. McLean Mill wasn't a specific example, but the museum was. How we run our museum, just as a part of the city, a department of the city, doesn't really line up with how other communities run their museums. So we've been working hard our staff has been working hard to come up with new models to run these things. I think McLean Mill is a good one because it's a hot topic. Everybody feels strongly about McLean Mill, whether you really love it or really hate it or don't want to see another penny go to it or want us to spend $1 million a year. The community's really split on it. I think at the end of the day, if we can make McLean Mill more relevant to the general population of the community, people won't mind spending the money on it. I'm sure the goal at the end of the day is to spend less money on it. I think we want to spend less money on everything, if at all possible. But I think the community just wants it to feel like it's more relevant to them and want to feel like they can go out there and there's more offered for different segments of the population. So what we're working on with McLean Mill and the museum is just different ways of running them. So with McLean Mill, we've implemented a new board of managers that will take over the contract of running the mill. Industrial Heritage currently runs the mill, and while I think they've identified that they're great at running the actual mill operation, they don't have enough business people on their board to run the business side of it. So what we're hoping is that we're going to be able to leverage the people who are volunteering out there now and know what they're doing with the mill and add in some more business people on the board, a new board, who will help in actually marketing the mill and taking it in a new direction to offer some more services there. The museum could be similar, but we're really early in that process still, so I don't really know where that one's going to go. I think that when we announced that we wanted to make changes to how the museum was going to be run, what the community heard largely was they're going to shut down the museum. And that's certainly, I can only speak for myself, but definitely not my intent. What I want to see personally is more offered at the museum, and I think maybe same with the McLean Mill Board of Managers. If we get some new people involved in running the museum, and maybe we'll have less restrictions if it's not run directly through the city, maybe a board, maybe not, I don't know yet. Maybe we'll get some new life there, we can start interesting new people and just sort of revitalize what we're doing. Maybe it'll cost less, maybe it'll cost the same. That's not really been a topic that's been brought to the table yet, but just new ways of doing things to look at what other communities are doing as well. So that's kind of, we have done more, but that's a couple or some of the things that we've done in the last 2 years on council. What we're working on right now, we're starting budget for 2017. And I think this year of budget is going to be different than years we've had in the past. More important, I think. Not that every year hasn't been. But what we're looking at this year and what we're publicly talking about is, are we going to maintain the level of service that we have now, or are we going to start to drastically cut services? The reason behind that, and it was brought up by our new CAO, the reason behind that is we have 23% of our property tax base is our industrial taxes. And there's definitely a fear in the community, what if the mills shut down and leave and that part of our tax base is gone. We don't know if that's going to happen, when it will happen, what the future looks like, but I think the point we want to get to is a point where if that were to happen, we wouldn't be in a disaster mode where we have to make desperate cuts. We want to be in a position where we feel we can handle that if it does happen. So this year at budget, the other part of that is we realized that we need to start spending more on our infrastructure. Infrastructure renewal is something that has been overlooked largely because I think it's not something that's exciting to fund. I think people want to see a new pool. People want to see streetscape beautification and that kind of thing. That's the easy money to spend because people are excited about it and you see the results of it, but you don't see the results of new pipes and updated roads. Those things are kind of boring, and so they've maybe been overlooked a little bit in the past. We need to start spending more on those. So when you put those two problems together, what's sort of been brought to our council is how do we want to do things differently going forward? If we want to invest more in infrastructure, are we going to increase taxes to do that, or are we going to decrease our spending? This, I think, is where our council really varies, and this is where we need the community's engagement more than ever. There are definitely some people on our council who think we should cut, and other people who think that we should pay more for the services that we have. I think all of our services are important services, and it's easy to get into, cut this, cut that, and we'll give the illusion that we've saved people money at home, and we haven't necessarily saved people money. Garbage is a separate cost, so it's sort of not really a great example, but it's an easy example to make. If we said we're not going to deliver, or we're not going to do garbage, offer garbage service anymore, people still need to get their garbage picked up somewhere. So at the end of the day, they're not paying us for it, but they're paying somebody for it. We haven't really reduced, my costs at home. And I think that's something we need to be conscious of when we're having this discussion. Are we actually saving money, or are we just giving the illusion that we're saving people money by reducing their taxes? So that's the conversation we're having now. My personal feeling is that we need to find a way to have balance. We need to invest in our community, not just infrastructure. We have to invest in infrastructure as well. I think all of our city services are important services, and if we're going to be getting rid of some of them or reducing that level of service, we need to really have an engaged conversation with the public. And to date so far, I don't think we've really had that. So sort of my last slide, we don't need to see it, but my last slide was asking for input. And I think that this year more than ever, we really need the community to come out and get involved in our budget input surveys and evenings and that kind of thing. We need to hear people's opinions. If the services are important to you, then we shouldn't be cutting them. But we need to hear, what the community does want, and we need to hear from more people than we normally do. So I think that's all I have to say, but I'd love to hear, I'm happy to answer questions, and I'd love to hear from more people if there are any questions.